I never thought I'd be that person. One who discovers their entire marriage was a lie. But there I was, standing in my own garage at 2 a.m., watching my wife of 8 years climb out of my best friend's car. What happened next? You won't believe it. This is the story of how I uncovered the most elaborate cheating scheme, and how karma came back harder than anyone could have imagined. My name is David, I'm 34 years old, and I thought I had it all figured out. A beautiful wife named Emma, a successful career as a software engineer, a house in the suburbs of Manchester, and a best friend, Marcus, who'd been by my side since university. We were the picture-perfect couple that everyone envied. Our Instagram was full of happy photos, weekend getaways, and romantic dinners. But behind those filtered images was a truth so devastating. It would destroy everything I thought I knew. Let me take you back to where it all began. Emma and I met at a mutual friend's party 7 years ago. She was stunning long blonde hair, green eyes that sparkled when she laughed, and a smile that could light up any room. I was immediately smitten. She worked as a marketing manager for a pharmaceutical company, and she was ambitious, smart, and funny. Everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I took her to the Lake District, her favorite place in the world. We hiked up to a secluded spot overlooking wind, and as the sun set over the water, I got down on one knee. She said yes without hesitation, tears streaming down her face. Marcus was there too. I'd asked him to hide and capture the moment on camera. He was my best man at our wedding a year later. Marcus had been my rock through university. We'd lived together in student accommodation, pulled all-nighters studying for exams, and celebrated every achievement together. After graduation, he went into finance, while I pursued tech. He was the godfather to my niece, a regular at our Sunday dinners, and someone I trusted with my life. Emma and Marcus got along great from the start. Maybe too great, but I was too blind to see it. Our marriage was everything I'd hoped for, so I thought. Emma was attentive, loving, and supportive. We had our routines: Sunday morning brunches, Thursday night date nights, and Saturday afternoon walks with our golden retriever, Bailey. She'd pack my lunch every morning with little notes that said, "Have a great day. Love you." I thought I was the luckiest man alive. But looking back now, there were signs. Small things I dismissed or didn't think twice about. Emma started going to the gym more frequently 5 times a week instead of 3. She bought new lingerie that I rarely saw her wear. Her phone was suddenly always face down on the table. She started taking work calls in another room. And Marcus, he became even more present in our lives, dropping by unannounced, staying for dinner multiple times a week, and volunteering to help with house projects. The first real crack in my perfect life came 6 months ago. It was a Tuesday evening in April. Emma said she was going to a work conference in London for 3 days. She'd attended these before, so I didn't think anything of it. I kissed her goodbye, told her I'd miss her, and settled in for a few days of bachelor living with Bailey and my Xbox. That evening, Marcus texted me asking if I wanted to grab a pint. I agreed, thinking it would be good to have some company. We went to our usual pub, the Crown, and spent the evening watching football and catching up. He seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone. When I asked if everything was all right, he said work was stressing him out. I bought it without question. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Emma's colleague, Sarah, asking if Emma had mentioned anything about covering her shift tomorrow. Confused, I texted back saying Emma was at the conference in London. Sarah's response made my blood run cold. What conference? We don't have any conferences scheduled this month. My heart started racing. I called Emma immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again, and again, nothing. I texted her. Sarah just asked about covering your shift. What's going on? 20 minutes later, she called back, sounding flustered. She explained there was a miscommunication. The conference was actually for her personal development, not a work requirement. Something about her tone felt off, but I wanted to believe her. I always wanted to believe her. The next morning, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. I did something I'd never done before. I checked our credit card statements online. That's when I saw it. A charge from a hotel in Birmingham, not London. The Hyatt Regency Birmingham. My stomach dropped. Why would she lie about where she was staying? I took the day off work, told my boss I was feeling ill, and drove the 2 hours to Birmingham. I don't know what I was expecting to find, but I had to know. When I arrived at the hotel around noon, I sat in the car park for 30 minutes, trying to calm my nerves. Finally, I walked into the lobby and asked the receptionist if Emma Thompson was checked in. She confirmed that yes, she was in room 423. I stood outside that door for what felt like an eternity. My hand trembled as I raised it to knock. But before I could, I heard laughter from inside. Emma's laughter. And then a man's voice. A voice I recognized immediately. Marcus. I couldn't breathe. My best friend was in a hotel room with my wife. Every possible innocent explanation ran through my mind. Maybe he was surprising her for her birthday next month. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me. But deep down, I knew. I knew what this was. I didn't knock. Instead, I went back to my car and sat there, numb. I drove home in a daze, barely remembering the journey. When Emma came home 2 days later, she was her usual cheerful self, full of stories about the conference. I smiled and nodded, playing along, but everything had changed. I wish I could say I confronted them immediately, but I didn't. I needed proof. I needed to know the full extent of what was happening. So, I did what any betrayed husband in the digital age would do. I started investigating. First, I recovered Emma's old phone that she'd recently upgraded from. She hadn't factory reset it, and all her messages were still there. I spent an entire night while she was asleep going through months of conversations. What I found shattered me completely. The affair had been going on for over 2 years. 2 years? It started small, flirty texts, compliments, inside jokes. Then it escalated. They'd meet at hotels. During her gym sessions, Marcus would book rooms on his lunch breaks, and Emma would sneak away from work. They had a whole system. Code words, careful timing, covering for each other. But what hurt most weren't just the sexual messages, it was the emotional intimacy. They talked about everything. She shared things with him she'd never shared with me. Complained about our marriage. About how I was boring and predictable. How I didn't make her feel alive anymore. Marcus would comfort her. Tell her she deserved better. Tell her he'd always be there for her. There were messages about me too. Mocking my hobbies. Laughing about how oblivious I was. Making plans around my work schedule. One message from Emma read, "He's so trusting, it's almost sad. Sometimes I feel guilty. But then you touch me and I forget everything." Marcus's response, "He's my best friend, but you're my soulmate. We'll figure this out." I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. But I kept quiet and kept digging. I installed a GPS tracker on Emma's car, completely legal since it was in both our names. I tracked her movements for 3 weeks. The gym visits. Lies. She was going to a flat in Salford that I later discovered Marcus rented specifically for their affair. She went there at least twice a week, always for 2 to 3 hours. I also set up a small camera in our garage. Nothing invasive, just to monitor who was coming and going. That's how I captured the video that would eventually blow everything wide open. During this time, maintaining normalcy was torture. I'd come home, and Emma would kiss me like nothing was wrong. We'd have dinner, watch TV, and go to bed. Sometimes we'd be intimate, and I'd wonder if she'd been with him earlier that day. Marcus would still come over for Sunday dinners. Shaking my hand, hugging my wife a bit too long, sitting at my table eating my food while having slept with my wife behind my back. I confided in my older brother, James. He was furious and wanted me to confront them immediately, but I convinced him to wait. I wanted to catch them red-handed. I wanted undeniable proof, and I wanted to protect myself legally and financially. I quietly consulted a divorce lawyer, gathered all our financial documents, and made copies of everything: bank statements, property deeds, investment accounts. I opened a separate bank account and started moving money there. I wasn't going to be blindsided when this all came crashing down. The lawyer advised me to document everything, which I did. I had screenshots, videos, GPS data, credit card statements, an entire dossier of their affair. She told me that with this evidence, I'd have a strong case, especially since we had no children and I could prove adultery. The night everything exploded was a Friday in late September. Emma had told me she was going to a friend's hen party in Liverpool. She'd be staying overnight and would be back Saturday afternoon. I pretended to believe her, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive away. But I knew the truth. The GPS tracker showed she was heading to Marcus's secret flat. I'd also hacked into his phone using some tech skills I'd picked up over the years. I knew his passwords because he'd always been careless about security. I could see their messages, planning the whole thing. A romantic weekend while I was supposedly at home alone. What they didn't know was that I'd planned my own surprise. I called Marcus around 8 p.m. Mate, Emma's away and I'm bored out of my mind. Fancy a lad's night. We could hit a few bars in town. He made an excuse about feeling unwell. Food poisoning, he claimed. Been throwing up all day. I could hear Emma giggling in the background. It took everything in me not to lose it right there. That's too bad, I said calmly. Feel better, mate. Maybe next week. I hung up and set my plan in motion. I'd invited my brother James, Emma's parents, and Marcus's girlfriends. Yeah. He had a girlfriend named Claire who had no idea about any of this, to my house. I'd told each of them I had something important to discuss about Emma and Marcus, but hadn't given details. They arrived within the hour, all confused and concerned. Claire looked particularly worried. Is Marcus all right? He said he had food poisoning. Everyone, please sit down, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I need to show you something. And I apologize in advance because this is going to be difficult to watch. I connected my laptop to the TV and pulled up the folder I'd been compiling for months. First, I showed them the GPS tracking data, with timestamps and locations. Then the screenshots of messages, carefully selected to show the timeline and nature of the affair. Emma's parents looked horrified. Her mother started crying. Her father's face turned red with anger. Claire's hands were shaking. No, Marcus wouldn't. We've been together for 3 years. We're talking about moving in together. I'm so sorry, Claire, I said genuinely. But there's more. I played the garage camera footage from 3 weeks ago. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday. Emma's car pulled into our driveway, but she didn't get out immediately. 5 minutes later, Marcus's BMW pulled up beside her. They sat there for another 10 minutes. I could see them talking, laughing, kissing through the windscreen. Finally, Emma got out. Marcus drove away, and she came into our house. Into our bed, where I pretended to be asleep. The room was silent except for crying. Emma's mother was sobbing. Her father looked like he wanted to punch something, and Claire had gone completely pale. I've been living with this for months, I continued. I wanted to make sure I had all the evidence I needed. I've already consulted a lawyer. The divorce papers are ready. But before I file them, I wanted you all to know the truth. Emma's parents, you deserve to know what your daughter has become. Claire, you deserve to know what kind of man you're with. And James, thank you for being here because I'm going to need you. Emma's father finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. David, I don't have words. This is unforgivable. You've been nothing but good to our daughter. You didn't deserve this. Where are they now? James asked, his jaw clenched. I checked the GPS on my phone. Marcus's flat in Seoul. They've been there since 6 p.m. Claire stood up abruptly. I'm going there. I'm going there right now. We'll all go, Emma's father said. This ends tonight. We drove in a convoy 3 cars heading to Seoul. It was around 10 p.m. when we arrived at the modern apartment building. I'd never been inside, but I knew it was flat 12 on the 3rd floor. We took the elevator up in silence, the tension palpable. When we reached the door, I motioned for everyone to be quiet. I could hear music playing inside, soft jazz. Then I knocked, loudly. The music stopped. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and Marcus stood there in a bathrobe, his expression shifting from annoyance to confusion, to pure terror in about 2 seconds. David, what are you doing here? Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing, I said coldly. Thought you had food poisoning? Behind him, Emma appeared in one of my t-shirts, a shirt I'd been looking for. When she saw not just me, but her parents, Claire, and my brother, all the color drained from her face. Mom, Dad. Her voice was barely a whisper. Her mother pushed past Marcus into the flat. Don't you mum me. How could you do this to David? To your marriage? Emma started crying. But they weren't tears of remorse, they were tears of someone caught. Someone whose carefully constructed lies were crumbling. Marcus tried to take control. Everyone, let's just calm down and talk about this rationally. James cut him off. Shut up. You don't get to talk. You betrayed your best friend. You're a coward and a cheat. Claire stepped forward, her voice shaking. How long, Marcus? How long have you been lying to me? Marcus opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Emma answered for him. 2 years. Claire slapped him hard. We've been together for 3 years. You've been cheating on me for 2/3 of our relationship. The flat descended into chaos. Emma's parents were shouting at her. Claire was crying and screaming at Marcus. James was holding me back because I was genuinely ready to punch Marcus. Neighbors started opening their doors to see what was happening. Finally, I'd had enough. Enough. I shouted, and everyone fell silent. Emma, I want you out of my house. Tonight, take whatever you can carry and leave. The rest will sort through lawyers. Your stuff will be packed and ready for collection within a week. Marcus, I don't ever want to see you again. Our friendship is over. You're dead to me. Emma tried to approach me. David, please, we can talk about this. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. A mistake? I laughed bitterly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying the wrong thing in an argument. This was 2 years of calculated deception. 2 years of lying to my face every single day. That's not a mistake, Emma. That's a choice. You chose him over me, over our marriage, over everything we built together. I love you. She cried. I still love you. No, you don't. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. Now, get your things and get out. The next few weeks were a blur. Emma stayed with a friend, or not the same friends who'd supposedly had the hen party, because when I contacted them, they revealed Emma had been lying to them too, using them as alibis when she was really with Marcus. I filed for divorce immediately. With the evidence I had, my lawyer was confident it would be straightforward. In the UK, proving adultery can speed up the divorce process, and I had more than enough proof. The story spread quickly through our social circle. I didn't have to say much. Emma's parents and Claire made sure everyone knew what had happened. Marcus lost several mutual friends immediately. His work performance suffered. And I heard through the grapevine that his company was considering letting him go due to his distraction and mistakes. Claire broke up with him that same night. She posted a cryptic message on social media about learning people's true colors that got hundreds of supportive comments. She reached out to me a few days later to apologize. though she had nothing to apologize for. We've both been victims of their selfishness. Emma tried to reach out multiple times. Calls, texts, emails, even showing up at my work once. Each time, I referred her to my lawyer. She oscillated between begging for forgiveness and trying to justify her actions. "You were always working," she said in one voicemail. "You stopped making me feel special." In another, she claimed Marcus had pursued her and she'd been vulnerable. She couldn't keep her story straight because there was no good explanation for what she'd done. Her parents cut her off financially. Been helping her pay off student loans. They told me they were ashamed of her and supported me completely. That meant more to me than I can express. Her father even gave a character reference to my divorce lawyer. Marcus tried to apologize once, cornering me in a coffee shop. "I never meant for this to happen," he said. "It just evolved." "Nothing just evolves," I told him. "Every time you texted her, every time you booked a hotel room, every time you sat at my dinner table lying to my face, those were choices. You had 1,000 opportunities to stop, to tell me, to be a decent human being. You chose to keep going. I know, and I hate myself for it," he said. "Good, you should. Now leave me alone." The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Because of the adultery and the fact that Emma didn't contest anything, probably because she knew she couldn't win. It was relatively quick by UK standards. I kept the house, Bailey, and most of our assets. Emma got her personal belongings and a small settlement. She also had to pay part of my legal fees. It's been 6 months since that Friday night confrontation. 6 months of healing, therapy, and rebuilding my life. People ask me how I'm doing, and honestly, some days are better than others. I started seeing a therapist who specializes in betrayal trauma. She's helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault. Emma's choices were her own, driven by her own issues and insecurities. I wasn't a perfect husband, no one is, but I didn't deserve what she did. No one deserves that. I've reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. I've taken up new hobbies: rock climbing, photography, even joined a local book club. I'm learning to be David again, not just Emma's husband or Marcus's best friend. Bailey has been my rock through all of this. There's something healing about a dog's unconditional love. He doesn't care about the drama, the betrayal, the pain. He just wants walks, treats, and belly rubs. Some mornings, he's the only reason I get out of bed. Claire and I became unlikely friends. We get coffee occasionally and talk about our experiences. She's dating someone new now, a good guy who treats her well. She deserves happiness after what Marcus put her through. As for Emma and Marcus, I heard they tried to make a relationship work after everything exploded. Apparently, they lasted about 2 months before imploding. Turns out a relationship built on lies and betrayal doesn't have a strong foundation. Who knew? Emma moved to London for a fresh start. I don't know much about her life now, and I don't want to. I've blocked her on everything and asked our mutual friends not to update me. That chapter is closed. Marcus is still in Manchester, but he's essentially persona non grata in our social circle. He lost his job not directly because of the affair, but his performance suffered so badly they had to let him go. Last I heard, he's working for a much smaller firm, making significantly less money. The universe has a funny way of balancing things out. If I could talk to the David from a year ago, the one who thought he had the perfect life, I'd tell him to trust his gut. Those little warning signs I dismissed, they were real. The changes in Emma's behavior, the increased secrecy, Marcus's overeager involvement in our lives, it all meant something. I'd also tell him that loyalty and trust are everything. Real friends don't betray you. Real partners don't deceive you. And when someone shows you who they really are through their actions, believe them. But most importantly, I'd tell him that he's stronger than he thinks. The devastation I felt that night in Birmingham, discovering the affair, I thought it would break me. And for a while, it did. But humans are resilient. We survive. We heal, we grow. I've learned that closure doesn't come from the other person. Emma never gave me a satisfying explanation or apology. Marcus's remorse felt hollow and self-serving. Real closure comes from within, from accepting what happened and choosing to move forward anyway. I've also learned to value honesty above almost everything else. In my future relationships, whenever I'm ready for that, I'll never take transparency for granted. I'll never again ignore red flags because I want to believe the best in someone. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from an unknown number. It was from Marcus's former colleague, someone I'd met briefly at work functions. "David, I thought you should know Ma and Marcus weren't just having an affair. They were planning to take money from your joint accounts and disappear together. I have evidence if you want it. Marcus bragged about it while drunk at a work event last year." My blood ran cold. I immediately forwarded the message to my lawyer. We investigated and discovered that Marcus had indeed been advising Emma on how to slowly drain our joint savings account. She'd been making small withdrawals over several months, £200 here, £300 there, transferring them to a separate account. Marcus had helped her set up. They'd accumulated nearly £15,000 of what was essentially marital money. Their plan, according to the messages this colleague provided, was to wait until they had around £30,000. Then Emma would file for divorce, claim we'd been living separately for months, a lie, and they'd use the money to start fresh somewhere abroad. The garage camera incident, that was them celebrating reaching the £15,000 mark. They were halfway to their goal when I discovered the affair. My lawyer immediately filed additional motions. Financial fraud in a marriage is serious. Emma was forced to return every penny she'd taken, plus penalties. She also had to pay additional legal fees. Marcus, who had aided in this scheme, faced potential criminal charges for financial fraud. In the end, they both settled to avoid criminal prosecution. Emma had to pay me £25,000 in restitution, the money she'd taken plus damages. Marcus lost his financial industry license and can no longer work in banking or investment. His career is essentially over. The irony? Their greed and planning of financial betrayal ended up costing them far more than they'd tried to steal from me. 4 months ago, I was at a restaurant with some work colleagues, celebrating a successful project launch. It was a nice Italian place in the city center, dimly lit with candles on each table. I was finally feeling like myself again, laughing at jokes, enjoying good food and wine. Then I saw them, Emma and Marcus, sitting at a table across the restaurant, together, despite everything. Despite their relationship supposedly ending, there they were, leaning close, her hand on his arm. My colleague noticed my expression change. "You all right, mate?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Just saw some people I used to know." Emma spotted me a moment later. Her eyes widened, and she said something to Marcus, who turned to look. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the restaurant, 3 people whose lives had been irreversibly tangled and destroyed. I raised my wine glass to them in a mock toast, smiled, and turned back to my colleagues. I didn't let them ruin my night. I'd given them enough of my time, my energy, my pain. They didn't get to have any more. When I left an hour later, they were gone. I never saw either of them again. It's been almost a year now since that Friday night when everything came crashing down. A year of pain, growth, therapy, and rediscovery. I'm dating again, nothing serious yet, but I'm open to possibilities. I've learned to trust cautiously, to communicate openly, and to value myself enough to walk away from anyone who doesn't treat me with respect. I got a promotion at work. Turns out, once I stopped being distracted by Emma's lies and had space to focus, my performance skyrocketed. My boss said I seemed reinvigorated and more focused than ever. Funny how removing toxic people from your life does that. I took a solo trip to Japan last month, something I'd always wanted to do but Emma had never been interested in. I spent 2 weeks exploring Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. I ate incredible food, met interesting people, and proved to myself that I could be happy alone. Bailey is getting older now. A bit grayer around the muzzle, but still, my loyal companion. We've moved to a new house, nothing huge, but it's mine, with no memories of Emma attached to it. Fresh start, new beginnings. The anger has mostly faded. I don't hate Emma or Marcus anymore. Honestly, I feel nothing toward them, which is somehow more powerful than hate. They're just people who were once in my life and made terrible choices. Their consequences are their own to live with. What I've gained from this experience is clarity. Clarity about what I want, what I deserve, and what I won't tolerate. I've learned that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best versions of ourselves. Would I go back and change things if I could? Part of me wants to say yes, to avoid the pain, the betrayal, the humiliation. But another part knows that this experience, as horrible as it was, made me stronger, wiser, and more authentic. I don't trust blindly anymore, but I haven't become cynical either. I believe good people exist. I believe honest relationships are possible. I believe in love, just not the naive version I had before. To anyone going through something similar, I see you. I know the pain you're in feels unbearable. I know you're questioning everything about yourself, your judgment, your worth. But I promise you, you will survive this. You will heal. You will find happiness again. Don't rush the process. Feel all the feelings. Be angry. Be sad. Grieve the loss of what you thought you had, but don't let it define you forever. You are not the person who was betrayed. You are the person who survived betrayal. There's a difference. And remember, their choices say everything about them and nothing about you. You are enough. You are always enough. The right person won't need to look elsewhere. The right person won't lie. The right person will choose you, every single day, without hesitation. As for me, I'm still healing, still growing, still learning. But I'm also happy, genuinely happy in a way I wasn't even before the affair. Because now I know myself better. I know my worth. I know what I'll accept, and what I won't. Emma and Marcus lost someone who loved them unconditionally. I lost people who didn't deserve me. When you look at it that way, I'd say I came out ahead. This is my story. It's messy, painful, and imperfect. But it's real. And if sharing it helps even one person feel less alone in their pain, then something good came from something terrible. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, you're stronger than you think, and better days are coming.